Hello, how's it going everyone? Welcome to another Fallout 76 build. Well, it's not necessarily a build guide, but a weapon testing video. And today we're going to be going over the Tomahawk. Well, throwables in general, but Tomahawk being one of the stronger throwable weapons, we'll be testing that here today. So this video might be a little bit long because we're going to be going into detail on what affects the damage and what actually affects the Tomahawk. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into it. So to start things off, we are going to be using a regular pipe pistol. Now, just like grenades, certain legendary effects do affect the tomahawks or the throwables that you can use. So as you see, our damage right now is 134, which is the regular. We're now going to switch on over to an anti-armor, excuse me, and the damage will now go up. We're now doing 172. Now we're going to try out Bloodied. We're going to go ahead and get ourselves equipped, and then also, once we kind of get a little bit away from the behemoth, we're going to go ahead and spam some spoiled meat, because that's all I got on me right now. And we'll get ourselves Bloodied and proc Nerd Rage. Now, of course, we're actually going to be doing a lot more damage. And we're going to be doing 247. Now, we're going to switch back over to the anti-armor and show you guys the difference between the damage. And fortunately, the Bloody does a little bit better than the anti-armor. It does 10 additional damage more while in Nerd Rage. Now there are other effects like the vampire effect that can actually proc the healing effect as well. Now it's not crazy. We're going to remove a little bit of rad so then you guys can see the amount of health that is healed. But it's a very, very tiny bit. But it does technically work. Now up next, we're going to be using VATS with the throwables. And this video, the Tomahawks. Now, all you need is just a level 1 concentrated fire and a ranged weapon. Preferably something with a long range. But we're going to be removing some perk cards because I want to show you guys how damage works and what actually works with the throwables. So I did remove Tenderizer to remove any random increase in damage, as well as removed follow through. But follow through and take one for the team do work for damage as well. I'll show you guys here later on in the video. But for right now, we'll be using Sneak, as well as a little bit of Bloody Mess. Because yes, Sneak does work with the Tomahawks as well. Now, we're going to go up to this Super Mutant Behemoth, and how this works is what you want to do is hold down your throwable button, and then quickly release and press your VATS button. So you want to hold, release, and then VATS. Almost right after the other. So then you'll be able to trigger that VATS effect. But with concentrated fire, you'll be able to target certain body parts. This entire video, we will be using the torso, but you can target the head. But as you can see, VATS is working. It's almost like an auto lock, but it works nonetheless. And as you can also see that it is increasing the crit bar. Now with that, with the crit bar filled, we're going to remove better criticals so we can get a number for how much we're getting for the crits, which is 339. We're going to get this bar filled up once again, and then we're going to proc our crit, 339. So that is our base damage for our crits right now. What we're going to do is we're going to throw on our better criticals and show that the increase is going to be there. So our base is 339. We're going to get it charged. We're now hitting for 449. Get it charged once again, 449. So we can easily confirm that crit damage does work for this weapon. Now to quickly show Bloody Misses actually being part of the damage as well, we removed it. We're hitting for 177, 177. So there's our baseline damage with no random increases. We're going to put on Bloody Mess again. Now we're hitting for 190. We're going to push the damage just a little bit further, and now we're going to throw on Covert Ops under the Agility perk cards. This does count as a ranged sneak weapon. So our damage is now doing 237 with the perk card active. Now I forgot to mention that we weren't using any chems, and the weapon that we were using is the anti-armor pipe pistol. So the higher damage we're getting is due to the anti-armor effect, because as you saw earlier, legendaries do affect the tomahawks. So now we're going to go up and re-gauge our base damage. So for our first throw, we're hitting for 241, 241, 241. So 241 damage is our base damage. So now we're going to go ahead and find our Tenderizer perk card and throw it on. So we're hitting for 237. I don't know why it went down, but you can see that the Tenderizer is proccing. So for the perk cards that we have to increase our damage, we have Bloody Mess, Better Criticals, Covert Ops, Sneak, Tenderizer, an anti-armor pistol, and now we're going to throw on Follow Through. But unfortunately, I ended up dying because I was not paying attention. So now our bloodied is a little bit less, but you will see the damage increase to 330 or 383, excuse me. So we're hitting pretty hard with Follow Through, Tenderizer, and all those other perk cards being activated, as well as Sneak. So up next, we're going to be adding some chems, magazines, and foods to increase our damage. Now I am an herbivore, so I'll be using Blight Soup, but to start things off, to show that the chems do actually work with the tomahawks, we're going to be using an overdrive. But first, let's go ahead and get our base damage. We're hitting for 216 with the health that we have. Next, we're going to pop our chem. Now we're hitting for 227. So now that we have the damage increase from the overdrive, the crits will actually be increased as well. Now for some odd reason during this recording, the crits were working a little bit weird. So I would proc it and the damage wouldn't go up, but then the damage would go on the second throw after the proc. But with that, we were hitting for 530. So up next, we're going to be applying Blight Soup, because I am an herbivore, and it is one of the best crit damage food buffs that we do have in the game. And although I'm not in a team with strange in numbers, I could push this up to 125 without the magazine. Speaking of which, 2 magazines that you can use that do work with the tomahawks, or 3, I don't actually know the third one, but is the Live Love 3 to increase the crit damage of the Blight Soup up to 188% crit damage in a team with strange in numbers, or you can get the flat 50 crit with the Tesla Science 8. But I do believe there is another magazine that does increase the Tomahawk damage overall. But if you're going to be using crits and VATs with the Tomahawks, or throwables, the throwing knives, or whatever, crit damage magazines and stuff would work significantly better than flat. So we're going to go ahead and re-gauge our flat damage. We hit for 216, but unfortunately I ran out of Tomahawk, so I had to resupply. So now we're hitting for 213. With the crits, we're hitting for 597 with the Blight Soup. To go again, get the charge, 597, again, just Blight Soup. Now we're going to go ahead and use the Tesla Science 8 for the increased 50 damage, or 50 crit damage. So let's get this crit charged up, and then for a crit, we are now hitting for 659. So we can confirm Blight Soup, Overdrive, as well as other Psychochems and magazines, at least the Tesla Science 7, or 8, excuse me, does work for the Tomahawks. Now we're going to re-gauge our damage with being in a team, to show you guys that being in a team with strange numbers increases Blight to 125% increased crit damage. So we're going to go ahead and now take the Live Love 3. Now this magazine I do not recommend using specifically for this build unless you got a bunch or you don't care about this magazine at all, because it is pretty expensive and very hard to find. But once you use it, you're in a team, you'll be able to get 188% crit damage with Blight Soup, which is significantly better than the Tesla Science 8 for the 50 crit. Now we're re-gauging. We got 219 or 216 for our flat damage. Now we're going to go ahead and proc the crit. And we're hitting for 745. A pretty big increase to the damage. But now that we have the magazine, the food, we're going to go ahead and apply the overdrive on top to push that damage even further. So with 231 as our flat, our crit damage is now doing 805. That is a pretty nice increase with overdrive and all the other food buffs. And this is also without take one for the team and tenderizer, so there's still damage to be had there. Now, one thing to note before we continue on with more damage is that the tomahawks, throwing knives, and all that do not have a drop-off damage distance or range. So using a weapon with a high range will allow you to use your VATS a little bit farther away, if that is something that you were interested in doing. But for that first hit, we hit for 234, we hit for 231 as he got a little bit closer. I don't know the damage dip there, why that happened. But as we pressed back, we were consistently hitting for 231. Now, wonderful thing about the throwables is that you can actually somewhat rapid fire them if you learn how to pace your throws. Think of a metronome where you have the beat, the tempo is like boop, 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 boop. My best impression. But think of that while you're pressing down your button. You press, and as soon as you let go of the first one, you pace it and keep throwing. And it will allow you to rapidly throw your tomahawks or whatever it is that you're using. This does not work for grenades, by the way. But now with that, let's go ahead and put on everything. We'll put on our Bloody Mess, Better Criticals, our Covert Ops, Sneak. We'll put on Nerd Rage, or I think I don't actually use Nerd Rage here, but Tenderizer, Follow Through. We're going to use a Team, Blight Soup, Live Love 3s, and Overdrive. And let's go ahead and see what kind of damage we'll be getting here. So here's everything. Unfortunately, we do not have Nerd Rage active, but keep in mind, Tenderizer and Follow Through have a small burst in damage, but it doesn't appear to be affecting the crits. So we're hitting for 241, now 434, and for the crits for 999. 427, 375, 999 crit. So we can push that damage a little bit further if we had our Nerd Rage. Now, one final thing with the Tomahawk, which is probably the most hilarious thing on top of, well, this entire weapon itself, is using the circuit breaker proc method, which is using a circuit breaker with 0 ammo. You cannot have a single bullet, not in your reserves, not in your clip. And with that, it will be able to proc the stun effect. The stun effect does work, and you can use Grenadier to increase the radius of the explosion. But I'm sure a lot of you guys know of the other methods, Ricochet and such, for the circuit breaker, but there are some other fun things that you can do with it using the stuns. But yeah, it does work with throwables and grenades. And that about covers it, friends. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts. I know it's not the best build or the best weapon to use, and it doesn't have like insane damage or DPS, but I feel like this is more for fun, to kind of break up the usual melting of things, you know? But with that, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube things, and of course, as always, hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Happy hunting, good luck, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.